everyone, and welcome to the official Sheffield United podcast, one of our own, where we talk to Blades players past and present about their time at Bramall Lane. And our first episode of the new year is a man who captained his hometown club, making 341 appearances, earning 3 promotions, and was the cornerstone of United's defence for 7 years. Known by many as Stan the Man, it's none other than Paul Stancliffe. Hello to you. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Keeping well? Life treating you well?
It's all right. It's as good as it is for everybody at the minute, yeah.
Good stuff. We're just going to have a nice, relaxed chat about your time here and where it went after here as well. So let's start at the very beginning, shall we? Where did your footballing journey begin, as it were?
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that. My footballing
Long time ago.
Well, it was, but my footballing journey actually started, I think it was about 12, 13, playing for Mansell Junior School. We're playing round about here, I can't remember exactly where. And I got spotted by Danny Williams, who was manager of Sheffield Wednesday at the time, and he invited me down to Hillsborough. So I used to go down there a couple of nights a week. Sort of, there wasn't really any coaching going on, it was more lads getting together, going in the gym, playing 6 and 7 aside. And when it got to the serious stuff, when I turned 14, in those days it was sort of like the schoolboy forms. And the guy who was taking the coaching at the time was George McCabe. And he pulled me to one side and just said I wasn't what Sheffield Wednesday were looking for at the time. So they let me go. I was playing for a Sunday League team, a very good Sunday League team, really, with some very good players, and 2 or 3 of them went on to sign apprentice forms for various clubs, called Hillsborough Celtic. And through Hillsborough Celtic, I got connected with Rotherham. Had a couple of years there as a schoolboy at Rotherham. They offered me an apprenticeship, and it sort of kicked on from there. I signed at 16. And a few months later I was making my first team debut for Rotherham. To
go back a step, the Wednesday thing, is it right your dad was a Wednesday fan and took you to games at a young age, is that right?
My dad was from Hillsborough.
Right.
But we actually just lived up the road, just off Hanover Street. So there was always that. My brother supported United. I think that was because my dad supported Wednesday. And he did take me to Hillsborough, and I suppose in a way I was a fan. We moved up, a few years later, we moved up to Parsons Cross, which is obviously easier to get to Hillsborough. But in all honesty, when they released me, I never went back. That was my finish. If I had any love then, that killed it. And the only time I ever went back was for games. I never went back to watch Wednesday after that.
So you were how old when they said you're not what we're looking for? I was
probably just approaching 14.
Which, you know, at that young age, that's probably quite a difficult thing to handle, isn't it? That rejection.
It is. And having later in life been involved with youth football, you come to realise how hard it is for the lads as well. You know, at that time, you don't particularly think about anybody else. As I said, when you're coaching kids of that age and you're involved with kids of that age, you realise what an absolute tragedy it is for them.
Yeah. Is that where your parents become even more important to support you through that time? Did your dad kind of take on that role?
I mean, my mum and dad were brilliant. You know, the sort of making sure that I did the right things if I wanted to be a player, you know, and the dedication that I got was certainly through my mum and dad. You know, my mates going out and being young lads and messing about.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't do it because I just knew I was so focused on what I wanted that I knew it wasn't right. I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah. What kind of advice did you get from your parents? Because we all know that it's a very small percentage, isn't it, of young kids who get the opportunity to become a professional footballer. And did you have a backup plan, or was it the tunnel vision? No, this is it. This is what I'm going to.
No, that was it. I was so focused on I wanted to be a footballer. You know, the only backup plan that you sort of get is, or start thinking about, is when you're at school and you start getting to that age. Oh, were Rotherham going to take me as an apprentice? The story of that is my mum and dad knew weeks in advance before I did that Rotherham were going to take me, but they never let on. The only backup plan, the only thing I could think about doing was, if I wasn't going to sign for Rotherham, I'd go in the army.
Really?
Yeah.
So thankfully it worked out at Rotherham.
Well, thankfully for the army, yeah.
Yeah. So your time at Rotherham, what was that like?
That was great. I mean, as I said, there was a couple of lads there. I mentioned Elizabeth Celtic. They'd come through there. So I knew people in there. I knew the lads. The football that we sort of learned from the manager Jim McGuigan was how football should be played. He was a big, big lover of the Holland team of the 70s, Cruyff and all those, and he loved that, the way it was played, and he wanted his players, obviously not to be that class because they wanted to be at Rotherham, but that was the intention of how he wanted his teams to play for the level we were at. And as I said, I got proper coaching. I got proper coaching from senior players as well. You know, and I remember sort of Tommy Spencer, who had a spell in the community, working in the community a few years back. Another centre-half, Barry Wagstaff, who was a centre-half. They'd take me aside in the afternoons and they'd work with me, not just the coaches. You know, so the development wasn't just down to the coaches, it was the experience of all the players that they took the mantle on, as well as helping the young kids. And as I said, I made my debut at 16. It was towards the end, well, it was at the end of the season. That Rotherham team actually got promotion. So at 16, through the summer, I turned 17, and when I came back for pre-season the following year, I found myself a regular in the first team as an apprentice.
Wow.
On £7 a week.
How much was that back in the day, in old money?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Not a lot, because I mean, the thing was as well, I mean, Mum and Dad again, I was travelling on the bus, 2 buses to get to Rotherham, 2 buses to get back. You know, that was costing more or less my wages. So they still had to support me, even though I was in the first team, they were still supporting me.
Yeah. And the manager would have been Ian Porterfield, right?
The manager at the time was Jim McGuigan.
Right, and later became
Porter, yeah.
And obviously you then worked with Ian again here, which we'll come on to shortly, but just how big a role did he play in particular in your career? I would imagine pretty big.
Oh, it was massive. I mean, I've been fortunate, you know, Jim started it, Ian took it on, and then, you know, the sort of 2 or 3 in between, but the main 3 is obviously Harry as well, which we'll come on to, no doubt. But, you know, I mean, you look back and you think, you know, obviously Ian's like what he's seen in me. You know, as a new manager, sometimes they get rid of the players when they come into a club. He sort of built that defence with me and Jimmy Mullen, who he brought in from Sheffield Wednesday. We had a great relationship through at Rotherham. You know, I mean, the sort of the promotion year, I was talking to somebody about it the other day actually. I think the promotion year in 81, we only conceded 8 goals at home all season, 24 for the season. You know, so it was a sound defence. You know, Jerry Forrest at right back, John Breckin left back, Ray Mountford in goal. It really was. Looking back, you think, you know, your successful teams, the teams that do well, the teams that were played in here, that's the word, is teams.
Yeah.
You know, there was no individuals, they were a team. And that's why we were successful, and that's why we got on. You know, we got on and off the pitch as well.
You obviously had a great time at Rotherham, and it's played a huge part in your career, but at what stage did you become aware of Sheffield United's interest, and what were your initial thoughts when you knew that they wanted you? Or actually, didn't you push for the move out of Rotherham as well in the end?
At the end I did. I'd missed most of the 83 season. I had a bad injury in the September. I missed most of the season, didn't get back till March. Rotherham was struggling. Most of that team that Ian had sort of developed, and then we had Emily News after Ian, to be fair. But most of that team was now splitting up, going their different ways. Rotherham was struggling; they were getting relegated, and I'd been there 9 years. And I just felt it was time for a change for me. And I'd actually spoken to Norman Hunter at Barnsley about going to Barnsley, and I'd agreed terms and everything. And one afternoon I got a call off Ian, who lived in the same village, and he just said, "Do you want to pop round for a cup?" So I went round for a cup of tea, and we just sat talking, and he mentioned it and he talked about it. And to me, it was, as soon as he mentioned it, that was it. I got back home, spoke to the wife about it, rung Norman Hunter up the following morning, and just said, "I apologise, but spoke to Sheffield United, I'm going through there." And he was great. There was no animosity from him. It was absolutely brilliant. Was no. So that was it, done. One afternoon, after about a cup of tea with Ian, and that was it. But it did come out of the blue in a way, because as I said, everything was agreed. I'd even had the medical at Barnsley. So it was more or less, apart from me signing, everything was done.
And what did you walk into here? What was Sheffield United like then?
Well, obviously they'd just been promoted, so it was a confident team. There was confident players in it. You got Keith Edwards. He was born confident, wasn't he, Keith? Tony Kenworthy, another confident lad. Players that I didn't particularly know, played against a few times, but I didn't know them personally. So we had that deep inside. You're thinking, what's it going to be like? Any player does when they move around. But as soon as you walk in the dressing room, you were made to feel welcome. The club made you feel welcome, and I think that's what's, just moving on. I think that's what's special about this place anyway. Any time any player that comes in, you are made to feel welcome.
Yeah. And you enjoyed success in the first season, didn't you? Being here, which is a nice tonic when you've just gone into a new club and then you get promotion.
Yeah, but that was always Ian's plans. That was Reg Brealey's plans. From the start. It was sort of to get to the top league. So that was the first step. And it sort of, for me and for the club, with me coming in, it sort of fell into place that we were on the move.
Is it right? It was Hull, wasn't it, that you were battling with?
Yeah.
That season. What was that like when it's kind of neck and neck between two clubs?
Obviously intense. You just had to concentrate on yourselves. A bit of a cliche, but you couldn't affect the other results. So and also in those days, we'd finished our season. We'd finished on the Saturday here, but Hull were playing with Burnley away on the Tuesday, so we had to wait for that result to come through. But all the lads got together. We were up just a pub just up the road, the Royal Oak. We were all in there together, listening to it on Radio Sheffield, waiting, listening to the scores coming through.
And the characters in that dressing room at the time, who would they have been?
You got Joe Bolton, the big Geordie lad, absolutely mad as a hatter. Tom Effingham. Tom used to get the stick taken out, bless him, every day. But it never affected him. It was there. It was great. It was all the way through the team. You say you got Keith, Kevin Arnott, and good players, really good players. Yeah.
And what about your game? Did that change as a consequence of coming here? How did that develop and improve your own personal game?
It made me more aware that I was playing with better players.
Yeah.
I had better players around me. No disrespect to Rotherham, but it was a step up. It was a bigger club coming here. So you were aware of the fact. Obviously, the fan base is a lot bigger. You were aware of that. As soon as you walk down the tunnel, you're aware of that. As for my own development, I was never conscious of I've got to change my game. I was always aware of making sure it improved, but I never thought I had to change or adapt to anything. You know, I'd been brought here because Ian liked what he saw at Rotherham through me. I just had to carry that on.
Yeah. But as you know, here, the minimum requirement is give absolutely everything, isn't it? It's always been that kind of club, and I think you were always that kind of player, weren't you? Obviously, you'll have had off days along the way, but I guess you and the rest of the lads knew that the minimum requirement is 100% effort, week in, week out.
Without a doubt. I mean, and you know, and I like to think I did give that, you know, and I think that's what fans, any fan, that's what the first thing at the top of the list is what they want to see, and they'll appreciate any player if they can see that he's giving that, you know. But as I said, as soon as you walked down the tunnel, you knew what you had to do.
It came the time when Ian Porterfield left. How was that for you? You know, this, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would imagine almost like a fatherly figure at times, certainly where football's concerned, and you've played for him at Rotherham, you've played for him here. To see him go, how was that for you to take?
It was hard, as you said, because you'd come here because of Ian. He'd given everything. You could see that he had really given everything, and for some reason it's just stopped happening for him. There was rumours about him being under pressure. We didn't particularly believe it. I think we were something like 8th in the league when he got the sack, and you think, well, that's a little bit unfair. There's still a long way of the season to go. But as you get older, you realise that things like that do happen in football. You know, and I think it was, I don't want to say it was the fans, but certainly the fans put him under pressure and put the board under pressure. And like you say, eventually it happened. And
it was Billy McEwen that
Billy came in,
that,
yeah. Billy was youth team, doing the youth team here when he went, and Billy took on caretaker to the end of the season.
What was Billy like?
Billy was a good coach. He used to put some really good sessions on, very good coach, knew the game. It was his first job. I think he struggled a little bit with the older players. I think he was a little bit conscious of the older players, players like Peter With that were in here, Ken McNaught. He eventually got rid of all those, started bringing sort of the younger players in, which for me at the time I didn't think were quite ready. There were some good players in there, but I don't think they were quite ready to come through. And then we got in a relegation battle, and we were struggling for most of the season, to be fair.
Yeah, and obviously Dave Bassett was the next to come through the door. How long before did you know that Harry was the one that the club was looking at? What did you know of him? What was it like around that time? Did you hear the stories flying around that Dave was the one that United were looking at? Not
particularly. It was sort of probably day before that we'd actually heard. And then next day there he was in the change room waiting for us when we got back from training one day.
How was that? How did that go?
It went all right. I mean, obviously we all know what Dave's like. He's a bubbly character, he's not shy. He came in, put a smile on everybody's faces straight away, which was badly needed.
Yeah.
You know, as we said, we were under pressure, we were bottom of the league. Things weren't going for us. But as he's come in, and he just had a chat to all the lads, and he's pulled me to one side, just said, look, I want you to carry on being skipper. What you're doing here has been great. You know, we'll take it from there.
So this would have been what, January, February time in that?
I think so. Yeah.
He couldn't quite save you from the drop.
No.
But as players, did you gain confidence in him in that short time between when he came in to the end of the season that this fella could be a success?
Yeah, I think so, because I mean we got the drop, and in them days it was the playoffs as well. We went down through Bristol City. You know, so we'd almost done it. We got down to sort of like the last game. It didn't happen. But obviously with Dave's history, Wimbledon, what he'd done there and where he got Wimbledon, you know, I think that gave people confidence.
Yeah.
Obviously there was a lot of players left.
Good players.
Yeah, but they weren't for Dave's style of play, shall we say. You know, I know they knew that. You know, just through training they weren't happy with it. So he brings his own players in, players that know him, he knows them, and then that's when it kicked on, really.
Did you feel like a culture change here? Because you've gone from Ian Porterfield, you've had Billy McEwen, then you get this Cockney fella that comes up from down south and he's all bubbly and jovial. Did you feel, not just on the pitch but behind the scenes, the club, did you feel that culture, the atmosphere was changing with him?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when people ask me about it, I always say I've been in 2 generations of Sheffield United. You know, I was in the first generation of Porter and like I said, Billy. Then I was in the second generation of Harry. You know, and I nearly come through Harry's all the way through, but not quite.
And the fact that you remained when he let so many others go, that must have filled you with enormous confidence.
Definitely, but there again, I think it's because he knew, you know, I'll admit, he knew I wasn't the greatest of players, but he knew I'd put everything, I put my heart on the line. You know, and
you've often said that you knew your limitations. Expand on that.
Well, I think I'm going to say any good player that's been a bit big-headed, but I think any player should know the limitations. You know, knowing what you can't do. You know, I wasn't going to try and get the ball and start knocking 60-yard messy passes and things like that. I was a defender that could head the ball and tackle and clear my lines.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I got. I was a defender, and first and foremost, I wasn't a ball player. I was a defender. Just defend, and that's what I had to do. And if I started getting away from that, I used to get custard pie in my face.
You obviously enjoyed the art of defending, though. I remember when I used to come down here, you were playing. It's a bit grainy, admittedly, but I remember seeing you down here, and I hate the phrase, but head it and kick it, defender. Is that fair to label
definitely.
you as that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've had many a player come up to me after and said, you know, you could head it further than I could kick it. You know, so all them brain cells that have gone in my head, you know, but you know, that was it. That was what Ian brought me for to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I concentrated on doing.
So when Dave started assembling the squad to try and get you back the following season, promotion at the first attempt, take us through some of the players he brought in and what were your impressions of them and the squad that he was managing to build here?
Well, I mean, obviously the first 2 that stick out are Tony and Brian Dean.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Tony, I'd heard of Tony. I knew of Tony with his time down at Watford. He had, he was a little bit, I don't want to say shy, but he was a little bit quiet when he first came in. He probably still is a little bit quiet till you get to know him. But with the way, obviously, we were playing, we needed someone like him with his pace. You know, he wasn't soft. He could certainly look after himself. And then when he brings Brian in, sort of to play together, you know you've got something special up front. Although in saying that, when sort of Brian first come in, you're thinking, and you're watching him in training, you're thinking, what you got here, Harry? You know, you've wasted your money here in a way. But in Brighton's defence, if he needs one, I've never seen a player improve so quick over a season as Brian did. You know, I suppose that's credit to Harry and his team, his scouting team that's seen that potential in him.
Yeah.
You know, but the first sort of reaction wasn't the best. When
So fair to say he was raw?
It's a little bit raw, it's a good word, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and he's trying to control it and it'd come off his shin and be 10 yards away and his second touch was a tackle and things like that, you know, but no. And then Wally Downs.
Another character?
massive character. But I think, to be fair to Harry, although Wally was all right, and obviously Dave knew what he could bring to it. I think it was more about the character in the dressing room that Wally was there for.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he did put a smile on everybody's face. You know, just the way he acted. It was made sure everybody had a laugh in training. Even, you know, he'd take the mickey out of Harry. You know, it's obviously, if somebody's taking the mickey out of a manager to his face, you are going to have a laugh.
And did Dave enjoy that? The fact that players would have a go.
But that's why I say, you know, when you look back and you think that's why Harry's brought him in.
Yeah.
You know, to sort of like take the tension away from the dressing room, make sure we are enjoying ourselves. You know, and he knew that was one of why he was so special. He knew players' characters. He knew they could fit in. You know, over the two seasons with 2 promotions, I've always said, you look at the other players in the league, the other teams, there was better players, no doubt, but once again it's that word of team, and everybody knitted together and we were a team again.
Sheffield United's podcast is sponsored by NordVPN, who are offering Blades fans a significant discount. Follow the link in the description and use the code THEBLADES to get up to 70% off your NordVPN plan, plus 1 additional month for free. So when that first full season for Harry began, was it clear early doors that he might be onto something here, or did it take a while?
No, I think it was probably early doors when we sort of realised. I can't remember the beginning of the season, to be honest, too well. But I think we had a good run early doors. I think that's when we realised, you know, we might be onto something here. We might be able to get that back up a league. And
Dean and Agana started firing.
Well, if they're going to get 30 goals a season each, you know, you're not going to be that far away.
And for a centre half as you were, when you know you've got 2 players at the top of the pitch who are knocking goals in left, right, and centre, that's a major shot in the arm, isn't it?
You know, and the way we did play, it was I suppose it was easier for the back defenders. You know, you weren't looking to play into midfield. You didn't have to be aware of the likes of where Wally were or John Gannon was. You know, you knew for a fact that you were just going to get the ball up into the channels, over the top of the opposition, as quick as you could. You know, I mean, we used to do a lot of practice games in training. And if any defender got the ball at the back and had more than 2 touches, the team were on press-ups. Harry used to stop the game. You've had 3 touches, Stan, everybody get down, 25 press-ups.
Did that surprise you or not? I mean, you said earlier on that you didn't see yourself as a ball-playing centre-half anyway, so when a manager comes in with that philosophy, is the party that thinks, is this really the way I want to play football? Because you said right at the start when you were at Rotherham, the coach there wanted you to get it down and play, so this is a complete opposite shift, isn't it?
Yeah, it took a while. Because, like I say, you would have more than 2 touches at the back, even in training. You know, so it did. When when the lads are getting onto you because they're doing 100 press-ups a day, you know, you start to think, well, no, maybe I just boot it upfield and that. But even and boot it, we did boot it, but there was a method to the madness. There was areas we knew we had to hit, and that was the sort of what we're looking to do in training.
How do you think United were perceived by other clubs and the style? Were United seen as long ball merchants, the unfashionable ones?
Managers, I think managers used to hate it. Players used to hate it. True story now then. End of that season, we get promoted. We go to Magaluf for a few days with all the team. Harry's come with us, the staff's come with us. And one night, Steve Thompson, the other centre-half with me, we were out one night and we bumped into Brian Talbot, who was at West Brom. We're having a few drinks and Brian Talbot has absolutely slaughtered me and Tomo for the way Sheffield United play. Battered us. few hours later, we bump into Harry. And he's with Redknapp and a lovely lad who's no longer with us, Brian Tyler. He used to be at Rotherham, Brian, before me, but a great guy. Mm. And they get in a heated argument, Talbot and Harry. So Brian Talbot steps in, he said, look, you've just got promoted, you'll be playing West Brom next season. Have a couple £100 bet, first game, home and away, winner takes all, but it goes to charity. So both agreed. Would you believe the fixtures come out, our first game is West Brom away. So we go through there and obviously we win 3-0. Talbot's playing, player manager. With 10 minutes to go, he shouted to his bench, get me off, we're getting slaughtered here. So that was nice. Really
nice sweet victory, that one.
And to be fair, he shook everybody's hand after the game and said he'd just battered us here. But no, players didn't like it. Because it was new. I know Wimbledon had done it.
Yeah.
Watford had done it a little bit with Taylor, Graham Taylor. And then when Harry went through to Watford, he carried it on through there. So there weren't many doing it. So there weren't many knew how to play it.
And he wasn't going to change that philosophy just because you've gone up a level.
Not at all. You know, I mean, and the hardest thing when Harry used to say to us, we'd come off, and if we'd got a result or something, and you looked at the opposition, because the hardest thing when you're playing against it is not to get into doing what we were doing. And when they started doing it, we knew we'd got them.
Yeah.
When they started hitting the long balls, we knew we'd got them. But the art of that was as well, that's where the front men came into their own. Because nobody really had pressured a back four like we used to. So they didn't have time to pick a pass and look up and find a teammate, because they got Dean and Agana in the face, they got Bryson in the face.
So what were the teams that caused you problems then? You know, teams who tried to counteract what you were trying to do as a centre back. Were there teams that season that you thought, oh, hang on, they're actually causing us a problem?
Yeah, you still get, I mean, like the sort of the Leeds at the time.
Yeah.
You know, they'd mix it up a little bit more. They would go long. They had big Lee Chapman up front.
Yeah.
You know, to play off, but they could play on the ground as well. So, you know, at times the sort of like they call it the number 10 now, the guy in the hole. You know, that'd cause you problems. People like that. Newcastle, I mean, because they were up there, so they were good teams. You know, they were good players, as I said earlier, really good players. So they were always going to get problems, but thankfully it didn't happen too often.
So you've just come up, you're playing the following season, and you've got the additional, I don't know whether pressure is the right word, but you've got more cameras on you because you had the documentary. Which was great, by the way, and I watched some back the other day knowing that we were going to have a chat today. And around that time, I don't think I'd seen anything like that before. Did Harry explain to you what was going to happen, and as players, how did you feel about that, being so under the microscope, having cameras following you everywhere, cameras being in the dressing room, training ground, on match days?
Well, I can't remember how it came about. I think, to be fair, it's probably Andy Dakin, the commercial manager at the time, who explained to the lads what was happening. But before the cameras came in, we'd sort of had the producer and a couple following us around for weeks before that. So we were aware of strangers, if you like. There were strangers at first.
Yeah.
Strangers in the dressing room, strangers at training, before the cameras actually came in. So when they did, it didn't really affect anything.
Why did he want to do it, do you think, Dave?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. I really don't know. If I did know, I've forgotten.
But did he say to the lads, look, just open your doors, let them in?
Yeah. It was something, certainly, I mean, as you say, they came around to the house with the wife and things like that. If you didn't want it, you didn't have to do that. You know, when they were at the ground, you had to put up with that. But they were fine. They were they did melt in the background, and they did become, I don't want to say part of the team, but they did become supporters.
Yeah.
Because we got promoted, we had a good cup run as well, and they were desperate for us to get to Wembley, because if we'd have got to Wembley, the BBC had given them a couple of extra programmes, so they were desperate for us to get that far, because Man United did us here in the quarter-finals, didn't they? But they were desperate for it, and they did become part of the team of supporters. They were really, really so happy when we won a game.
We saw you eating your spag bol on a Friday.
Oh yeah, still do.
Do you still do it?
Not on a Friday.
No, have you mixed it up a little bit?
Yeah, probably on a Wednesday or something like that now. When the grandkids come down, I have to do it.
Eating his spag bol on a Friday before a game. But I guess as a player you do fall into traps, habits like that, don't you? The sleeping pill thing was interesting as well. Was that only on a Friday before a match day?
Yeah, it was only on a Friday. Was
that down to nerves then?
No, that was
anxiety.
No, that was down to young kids.
Just not being able to get enough sleep.
Yeah. Just so that I didn't hear the kids getting up in the morning and stuff like that.
Who was cooking the spag bol, by the way? Was that
me.
It was you?
Oh, it's always been me.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting because you don't really think about players how they prepare for games away from the football pitch. On a Friday night before a Saturday game, were you quite a relaxed person, or were you starting to get on edge and you're watching the clock, you're waiting for 3 o'clock the following day to come round, or what?
I suppose in the beginning you get like that, and if you start getting, it's when you start on a successful run. It was for me.
Yeah.
We won this week. Not particularly what a war, but what cassette, how far we're going back. What cassette do they have in the car? On the way to the lane. Things like that. Like it's probably. I mean. Things like going back to the Rotherham days, we went on a run, and just flippantly I said, right, I'm not going to shave till we get beat. I think we went something like 19 games.
How big was the beard by then?
It was down here, and that's why I kept it. Yeah. Because just little things, as I say, it's probably. Well, I know it's not just me, but not every player does that. That's how I got the beard. I'm not going to shave till we get beat. And we went something like, I think it was like 18, 19 games. So that's how the beard came about.
And that season, of course, where we talk about the cameras, we know how it all ended, but not great for you, really, because you weren't able to take part in the final 3 games. You must have been absolutely devastated. Just remind us what happened there.
Well, I had an Achilles problem. And I just couldn't run. I mean, later down the line, a couple of years down the line, I ended up having an operation on it. But that's when it first started flaring up, sort of like towards that end of the season. And that was so hard to take. Yeah,
when the team's flying and you know that there's every chance this is going to happen. Did Dave have you as part of the team and the squad? Did he want you around the place? Was he that kind of manager?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I was involved in everything. Obviously, you say in the documentary at the Leicester, you see him in the dugout, things like that. Yeah. In the changing room, but it wasn't just me. There was everybody there. That was how it was. It was that squad was together.
That day is etched on every Sheffield United fan's memory. The ones that were there who lived through it, and obviously there's been promotions since, but that seems to be the one that sticks out for everybody. Why?
I've no idea. I think it's because it probably took them so long to get back. Recent history, they've been up and down, but it took them so long to get back there. And it had been so hard for the fans that had come through the sort of like the good times in the 60s and the 70s, with the Currys and the Woodwards and Billy Deardens and all those. And then to see that drop all the way down to the bottom tier of English football. And then to get back, I think that was
But it just rolls off the tongue. What's your best memory as a Blades fan? People of a certain age, Leicester 5-2. Always Leicester 5-2. There's been promotions to the Premier League since. There's been some great times since.
My
just
best
trips
memory,
off the tongue every time.
My best memory of that day, when you actually brought it home, what it meant, was when we've come off the motorway, we've come down to the bottom of the parkway, and from the parkway to Bramall Lane, fans were at the side of the road then cheering us in, and we couldn't get the bus in the car park for the fans.
That's mad, isn't it?
That's when it, I mean, you know what it means, but that's when it really hits you.
Yeah.
Honestly, we coming past the baths and the station, it was unbelievable.
Looks like it's putting a lump in your throat even now. I can see it.
Yeah.
You see it in your face. That
it does. You know, things like that.
Emotional thing to look back on.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Some journey back then.
That was unbelievable. I mean, that was another thing. We always had a great journey back, wherever we were. Harry, being Harry, knew what we were up to, but we'd always throw a few quid in after an away game. First off licence, a few cans on. But Harry would always be late on the bus. Right, we're leaving at 6 o'clock or whatever, 5:30, and you got fined if you were late. Just in place pool, but Harry was always late. And he'd put 20 quid in, something like that. You know, but he knew what he was doing.
It's little things like that, isn't it?
And we'd always have a drink on the way back,
Yeah.
and have a sing-song on the way back. And that never changed. That never changed.
Something as small as that can make a big difference to a group of players, can't it? Deliberately being late, so he's then got to put money in the pot.
Yeah.
Little things, it's the details, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I mean, there was times when he wasn't late, there was times when he didn't have a drink. I mean, I remember Middlesbrough one, we got battered. Was it 6 at Middlesbrough? And that one, there was nothing. We couldn't even go in the players' lounge. It was straight on the bus. He was still late, but we didn't stop for a drink. I think that was the only time.
Going back to the Leicester celebrations, though, I mean, how long did they go? Everyone remembers Dave in his pants on the pitch, by the way, at the actual ground. But when you got back here, what was that like? How long did it go on for? What did you get up to? What can you share? What can't you share?
I think we got back. I think we either went in the social club at the time there, or the director's room. I can't remember which. But we stayed together. Well, most of us stayed together all night with the wives. The wives came through. We went out. We went to an Italian restaurant up on Abbeydale Road, and then obviously into Josephine's at night.
Obviously, it goes without saying.
Without saying. But we all, I'm not saying everybody was there, but there was the most were there, and staff as well.
Yeah.
And staff as well, and we stayed together most of that night.
Was that the best period of your career?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. You know, I mean, obviously success helps.
But it's everything else, isn't it? The manager.
It's the manager, it's the players, the team. But we did have a good social life, but it wasn't just players. The wives knew each other, and the girlfriends knew each other, and they got on as well.
Do you still stay in touch with a lot of those?
Not so much as you like to.
Shame, isn't it?
It is, but certainly, you know, when you do meet up, you make the most of it.
Yeah. So you get the opportunity then to lead the team out, top flight, Liverpool. That must have been just amazing. I mean, could you have ever dreamed of doing that when you first started out? No.
I mean, it is your dream, but as your career goes on, and I used to say at the time, I didn't think it was going to happen. Without a doubt, I didn't think it was going to happen.
What do you remember about the day itself?
I remember certainly coming down the tunnel.
You'd had the spag bol on the Friday, I assume.
Well, I hope so.
2 helpings, no doubt.
Coming down the tunnel, and you hear the crowd. That sort of brought it home then. You know, you, if I ever got nervous in a game, I got nervous that one. But I was all right until I got to the tunnel and you could hear the crowd.
And what did it feel like looking across at the Liverpool team in the tunnel? I mean, would it be Rush, Barnes, that kind of era?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole new ball game, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I played against Ian Rush when I was he was a kid at Chester. I was a kid at Rotherham. We played Chester at Millmore on a Tuesday night. We beat them 3-0. Ian Rush didn't have a kick, and the following day he signed for Liverpool.
Wow. So were you
justice?
Were you thinking in the tunnel, I've had a clean sheet against you already in the past. I'll stop you from having a kick.
No, I don't think so.
Do the same today.
That was the intention. Obviously, it didn't come off that way. But that's the players you're coming up against. You know, Harry used to. If things weren't going right for you sometimes on a game, Harry would shout on to me, Guppy, or Mark Morris, or somebody. We go man for man, which means right. You stick with him. You follow him. You don't give him any room. You don't give him any time, and we've got to go for it. It usually happened in the last 10, 15 minutes if we were chasing games. And obviously this one, we are chasing the game towards the end. And we get the shout off Harry. Stan, Guppy, yeah, man for man. And Guppy's looked at me and went, I'll let you pick. Do you want Barnes or Rush?
Who'd you pick? Rush?
I think I picked Beardsley as well.
Beardsley as well, yeah.
You know, so that was the players you were against.
Yeah, but you know, great memories. To be able to challenge yourself against players like that would have been brilliant for you, no doubt. But you didn't play too many games, did you? 3.
Yeah.
So, what was the conversation like when Dave obviously says to you, "Look, Paul, great servant, but I think it's time that, you know, maybe it's best for you, best for the club that we go our separate ways."
Were you there at the table?
No, I wasn't.
No, we trained one day, I think, early in the week. We're having lunch in the social. Harry's come in. Can I have a word? We went to a table. He just said, "Look, I think it's time we have a change. You're not going to be part of the plans. I think it's best for you that you move on now." If he said, "If you want to stay, try and fight your way back in, not a problem. But at the minute, you're not in my plans."
Bombshell moment for you.
Oh, without a doubt. It was, but I think I was expecting it at some stage.
Because of the players that he'd brought in?
The players he brought in.
Yeah.
He brought Bees in, Paul Beasley. Pembo had come in that season, although Pembo was more a right back. But yeah, I mean, I'd said the season before as well. You know, I was getting to that age. Well, I still wasn't sure if I was going to get a contract for the following season, even though we got up.
Right.
You know, so it was a bombshell. It hurt, but there was something inside me that knew it was coming.
And did Dave, in your opinion, do it in the right way with you?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, the way it was all handled.
I think it hurt Dave just as much as it hurt me, for him to having to say that to me, because he knew what the place meant to me.
Similar feeling to when you had to leave Rotherham, or worse? Because obviously you were there for a large chunk as well. So
but that was my decision at Rotherham.
Yeah.
I was ready to leave Rotherham. Nothing against Rotherham, it's just that I needed a change in myself. I'd been there 9 years. And it had come, I needed a change then. But this was somebody else's decision.
Yeah.
But as I said, deep down, I knew it was coming.
But it's no more easier though, is it?
Not at all. No. Not at all. You know, but I'm not the first, I won't be the last. It's, you know, it happens, it's football. You know, it's when it's the worst industry in the world. You know, there's always somebody, whoever you are, there's always somebody who wants your job.
Yeah.
There's always somebody who wants that shirt. There's always somebody who wants the manager's job.
And you'd had that shirt for 7 years or more.
You know, so it was a decent run.
Yeah, very good run. But you leave with Incredible memories, though.
Unbelievable. Like I just said, greatest time of my career.
What was the one highlight for you of your time here?
Leading them out against Liverpool.
Yeah.
You know, I think as well, you know, you knowing that you've played your part to get them back to the big time. You know, you've been down there, you've been to like Division 3 as it was then. You've played your part all the way through to get them up there. Through the 2 generations.
Yeah. But you're in a position now where you've got to find another club. And I would imagine that wherever you went was never going to be the same. Wolves you went to, didn't you?
Well, I went to Rotherham on loan for a month before that. Billy McEwen took me up there. So that would have been nice to go back there, but obviously that didn't happen. Wolves was good.
Yeah.
I think we both knew it's probably just going to be for that season. But Wolves, I mean, they had players like, you know, Steve Bull, you know, Andy Much in there. There's some really good players in there. Mike Stowell in goal. You know, and it helped. They were a good bunch as well. But it helped because we're sort of early. You know, we'd come up with Wolves, hadn't we, from Division 3. You know, they got first, we got second. You know, so we knew each other through playing against each other. So, in fairness to them, they had a good respect. They knew me. They knew what a good defender I was. You know, the players I'm talking about, Steve Bull, Andy Much, often spoke about it. You know, in fairness to Steve Bull, he said, I was the hardest centre half he found to score against.
Recognition.
Well, that's
the highest degree,
like you said, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, so it's you know, things like that. So it was easy to slot in there.
And then you obviously had to call time eventually on your playing career after you had a spell at York.
I went up to York,
Yeah.
got them to Wembley, another promotion.
Not bad. You've done all right for yourself, actually, haven't you?
It's all
When you
right,
look back, it's not bad going, not a bad CV. And then you move into coaching.
Yeah, I put York. Started off with the first team and supporting Alan Little. Things were going wrong with the first team there, so he wanted a change. Brought his mate in, Derek Bell, and I dropped down to doing the kids. And I stayed with doing under 18s ever since.
And you had to spell at Donny?
More than a spell.
A long time.
15 years at Donny, under 18s manager.
Yeah. Enjoy that?
Oh, it's brilliant. A good club, really good club. Good people there. It reminded me a lot of when I first went to Rotherham with a youth set, because Rotherham was a big youth set up there. It did remind me of the people. I don't want to be disrespectful, but it was a family club. You know, a family that wanted families to come. I'm not saying they don't here, but because it was smaller, you felt it more, I think. So I loved my time there. I had a really good 15 years, worked with some good people, some good managers. And then this time, that might be me. And then this time, last year, just before Christmas last year, I just thought, you know, that's it, nearly 50 years, I'm ready.
You're retired, but still busy grandkids, isn't it?
Still busy
Keeping
with
you
the
on your
grandkids,
toes?
yes, indeed, yeah.
Which is what, preventing you from getting back here as much as you would
much
want?
as I
Because
want,
we chatted before and I said, do you get down much? And you said
not
no,
really.
and I think that's a bit of a shame, really. You need to get down here.
I've just had a knee operation as well,
Right.
Which laid me up for 3 or 4 months. So that's held me back as well. But no, I'll start getting down. I mean, one of the I've got 2 grandsons, 4 granddaughters, 2 grandsons, and one's into rugby at the minute.
Right.
I'll have a word with him, don't worry.
Sort him out.
But the youngest, Joey, he's into Rotherham because he lives in Rotherham. So
Centre half?
no, goalkeeper, funny enough.
Oh,
at the minute.
goalkeeper, right, okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye out for him
Yeah,
then.
I
and
hope so. Yeah.
See whether he gets on. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thanks,
We could have
man,
done so
enjoyed
much
it.
more, but you need to get back down here,
I
and
know.
we'll get you on as a guest when we do our live TV coverage at some stage as well, and you can watch the game, have a chat, and give us your thoughts. But it's been brilliant to talk to you. Thanks so much
enjoyed
for
it.
coming down.
Thanks very much.
Nice to see you.
Cheers. Thank
Ladies
you.
and gents,
Paul Stancliffe. Hope you've enjoyed that. We will be doing more of these as the year goes on, but I think you'll agree it's a great way to start. The former Sheffield United captain, Paul Stancliffe. We thank him for his time, and we thank you for watching. Until next time, we'll see you soon.